Welcome to the massive open online course of Environment Education Interface, Environmental Education and Sustainable Development. The founder of Green Belt Environmental Movement and Nobel Peace Award winner of 2004, Wangari Maathai, a Kenyan environmentalist, once said that the environmental problem cannot be solved by adopting some measures by government or industrial bodies. Rather, it can be solved by changing our own lifestyle. The same concept or the same thinking was uttered by our Prime Minister Narendra Modi in the Glasgow conference in 2021. There, he convinced the then UN Secretary General to adopt a worldwide program towards sustainable development for our future generation. And that is the mission LIFE, where LIFE is the acronym of Lifestyle for Environment. In a speech to global business gathering on St. Petersburg International Economic Forum, Modiji quoted the Vedas to say, exploiting of the nature is a crime and milking of the nature is our right. He told that we have to live a pro-climate, pro-nature and pro-environment lifestyle for a sustainable progress. And that can be done through proper environmental education. According to the UN agenda, to achieve sustainable development, it is crucial to harmonize three core elements, and they are economic growth, social inclusion, and environmental protection. These elements are interconnected and all are crucial for the well-being of individuals and societies. Now, social inclusion and environmental protection needs an overall awareness about environment and its values. Here, the attributes called education plays its role to creating awareness. This MOOC lecture will deal with the issues regarding environmental education and the global goal of sustainable development. I have designed this lecture into 4 segments. The first, what education is. The second, what do we mean by environmental education. The third, what is sustainable development. And the fourth, how environmental education helps us to achieve or to attain sustainable development. There are 1,000 definitions of education, but all of these definitions leads us into 4 aspects of education, and these are to bring out, to lead out, to act, or to bring up. The Greek word pedagogy is also the same meaning of education, and in our India, Bharat, we basically use Shiksha in lieu of education, and by Vidya we means a collection of assimilation of knowledge. Different educationists have explained the term education according to the need of the hour. So the definition is based on time, space or individuality or person. In a nutshell, we may say education is the assimilation of ideas and not the collection of data, or education is the training of mind and not the stuffing of brains. True education is the harmonious development of our physical, mental, social, psychological or ethical, spiritual faculties. Therefore, education basically helps us to live a beautiful and meaningful life and to make a beautiful world through a holistic development. Now, according to Merriam-Webster dictionary, greed means a selfish and excessive desire for more of something than it is needed. The Industrial Revolution improved the condition of humans. So we moved from mere subsistence-based needs to consumerism with the advent of modern day capitalism, we turned out to be a hyper consumer. We are constantly trying to change our surrounding to make it a better place for us and to live in. But we looked on earth as a storehouse of resources and we making use of it as we wish. Thus, our greed lead to the exploitation of resources as well as our mother nature. The rapid growth of the population is the main driving force for the exploitation of nature. We are exceeding the capacity of the earth, and this leads to deforestation, excessive mining of resources, and pollution. Thus, we are ruthlessly exploiting our mother nature, and the result is global warming, ozone depletion, loss of biodiversity, water scarcity, air pollution, soil pollution, and many more. With borrowing some words from great philosopher Mahatma Gandhi, we can say, earth provides enough to satisfy every man's need, but not every man's greed. To control this greed, we need proper education of live and let live, proper education to protect our environment, to protect our nature, to protect our ecology, and to protect our biodiversity. And thus, the need for environmental education emerged. Now, environment education interface can be described into three ways: education for environment, education of environment, and education by or education through environment. The first two concepts defined by environmental education, whereas the third concept, that is education by or education through environment, is our age-old concept of Gurukul system or Tapobon system of learning and teaching, the concept of nature-based learning and nature-friendly learning. According to the UNESCO, environmental education is a way of implementing the goals of environmental protection. It means education towards protection and enhancement of the environment, and education as an instrument of development for improving the quality of life of human communities. Thus, the concept of environmental education in Western world is basically a selfish concept, which mainly portrays the benefit of human communities, because in this concept, environment is nothing but the surrounding that humans have built or impacted for its own interest. The concept of environment-based education was very old in our culture, whereas in Western world, the concept primarily opined by Rousseau in his book or in his novel Emily, the Treatise on Education, published in the year 1762. Before the Industrial Revolution, in the pre-1700 phase, there remained a balance between human and the natural world, a symbiotic relationship between agriculture and forest. Man used to harness the natural resources, but the relationship was never an exploitative one. But with the coming of Industrial Revolution, there ushered a paradigm shift in this relationship. The Industrial Revolution brought a paradigm shift in the production system, as a large number of factories sprang up all across Western Europe. The demand for raw materials and natural resources also sprang up by leaps and bounds. Not only forests were cut down for making way to new settlements and factory establishment, but it also became an important supplier for timber. Thus, the destruction of the forest lands became a part and parcel of the Industrial Revolution between 17th to 19th century. The so-called nature study movement got momentum in the year 1911 by the Notebook of Nature Study wrote by Anna Batsford Comstock, the head of the Nature Study Department of Cornell University. A new type of environmental education, conservation education, emerged as a result of the Great Depression and Dust Bowl during the 1920s and 1930s. Conservation education dealt with the nature world in a drastically different way from nature study because it focused on rigorous scientific training rather than natural history. Now, the World War I and World War II shows us how human conflict can lead us to the mass destruction of nature and biodiversity. Thus, post-World War, there was a growing concern to preserve the environment and the biosphere and the natural world. Due to the deadly smog episode in London, New York, Pennsylvania, and other parts of the Western world, the first International Air Pollution Control Conference was held on 1955. Several countries coming together on a same platform and signing mutual agreements to protect the environment and natural world. The Ramsar Convention in the year 1971 was the first of such example, and then the Stockholm Conference in the year 1972. The modern environmental education movement got momentum during the year 1960s and 1970s. During this time period, many events occurred such as civil rights movement, the Vietnam War and the Cold War. Therefore, more people began to fear fallout of radiation due to using the chemical weapons, chemical pesticides and the significant amounts of air pollution and waste. The public's concern for their health and the health of their natural environment led to a unifying phenomenon known as environmentalism. In 1960, the National Rural Studies Association was established in the UK to promote environmental education and support teachers in incorporating sustainability into their curricula. A definition of environmental education first appeared in the Journal of Environmental Education in 1969, written by William B. Stapp. In 1970, the then US President Nixon passed the National Environmental Education Act, which was intended to incorporate environmental education into school level. Thus, in 1970, the IUCN formalized environmental education. Then, in 1971, the National Association for Environmental Education was created to improve environmental literacy by providing resources to teachers and promoting environmental education program. Internationally, environmental education gained recognition when the UN Conference on the Human Environment held in Stockholm, Sweden in the year 1972 declared environmental education must be used as a tool to address global environmental problems. The UNESCO and UNEP created three major declarations that have guided the formation of environmental education. And these declarations are the Stockholm Declaration in the year 1972, the Belgrade Charter in the year 1976, and the Tbilisi Declaration in the year 1977. In 1992, more than 100 heads of state met in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil for the first International Earth Summit, which is also known as the United Nations Conference for Environment and Development, convened to address urgent problems of environmental protection and socio-economic development. It results in the Framework Convention on Climate Change, among other agreements. Then in 1995, parties to the UNFCCC met in Berlin, the first conference of parties, to outline specific targets on emission. In December 1997, the parties conclude the Kyoto Protocol in Kyoto, Japan, in which they agreed to the broad outlines of emission target. In 2002, the United Nations Decade of Education for Sustainable Development 2005 to 2014 was formed, as a way to reconsider and change approaches to acting positively on global challenges. In this context, in the year 1991, the Supreme Court of India directed to the central government to make compulsory environmental education in all levels of education. Thus, from the year 2004 to 5, Government of India make compulsory environmental education in all levels of education. Now, in the theory of education, environment plays a vital role because two most important factors in the development of a child or human development are heredity and environment. Here, environment means all the surroundings or all those physical and social factors that affect and influence the behavior and the development of the child. As we don't have any control on the child's heredity, so a good teacher is who can control the environment of the child by providing a stimulating environment for a better development of the child. And this is the basic proponents of environmentalist theory of education. B.F. Skinner and Albert Bandura contributed greatly to the environmentalist perspective of development. From the above discussion, we may say the so-called Western environmentalist theory or the Western environmental movement started in the year 1920s, whereas one of the great Oriental environmentalists, Rabindranath Tagore, uttered his concern about the exploitation of nature much before that. Recently, environmentalists and policymakers of different countries are emphasizing the concept, namely back to village. They are making policies to blend the values of preserving ecological balances through education, whereas Rabindranath Tagore in 1910, decade ago of the so-called environmental movement started in Western world, in his famous article namely Tapobon, wrote why and how we can go back to village for betterment of our life and nature. In one of his articles, Return to Earth, Tagore opined, we rob the child of his earth to teach him geography. We rob the child of language to teach him grammar. His hunger is for the epic, but he is supplied with chronicles of facts and dates. The concept of education, according to Rabindranath, is much more spiritualistic than materialistic. Though in educational philosophy, Tagore's concept comes under the philosophical concept of naturalism, but it is far beyond of Western concept of naturalism, because Western concept of naturalism does not believe in spiritualism. It denies the existence of a spiritual universe, the universe of ideas and values. Rabindranath Tagore emphasized education in the midst of nature, by nature and through nature, a nature-friendly environment of education. Thus, we can realize how much he was influenced by our old Vedic or Upanishadic concept when we saw that his dream educational project is named as Shantiniketan Brahmacharya. In his famous article on education, Rabindranath Tagore wrote, while growing up, the help of nature is indispensable. Trees, clear skies, free air, clear water, generous views, they are no less necessary than benches and boards, mannequins and experiments. The word development is widely used to refer gradual growth of something so that it becomes more advanced, more progressive, more improved. It is a process that ensures good quality of life. In post-industrial revolution period, human development has been addressed by its economic growth. But later, on the concept of environment and its protection had been incorporated in development term. And we got the three-pillar model of sustainable development. Here three pillars are society, economy and environment, which is quite interrelated. Now, in simple term, if we can say that development or the gradual growth of something is called the development, then the steady growth of something will be called as sustainable development. The intellectual underpinnings of sustainable development lie in modern natural resource management policy, conservation, environmentalism movements, and progressive views of economic development. The first principle of what later became known as sustainable development were laid out at the 1972 United Nations Conference on the Human Environment, which is commonly known as Stockholm Conference. The conference concluded that continuing development of industry was inevitable for our betterment, but also every citizen of the world has a responsibility to protect the environment, biosphere and nature. In 1987, the UN-sponsored World Commission on Environment and Development issued a report named as Our Common Future, introduced the concept of sustainable development and described how it could be achieved. This report is commonly known as Brundtland Report. It defines sustainable development as development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the needs of the future. At the Earth Summit 1992, more than 170 countries adopted Agenda 21, which outlined global strategies for restoring the environment and encouraging environmentally sound development. Since that time, sustainable development has emerged as a core idea of international development theory and policy. In 2015, the United Nations General Assembly adopted 17 Sustainable Development Goals to be achieved by 2030 for attaining sustainable development at the global level. Now, I will discuss how environmental education helps us to achieve or helps us to attain the Sustainable Development Goal. Environmental degradation is an alarming issue in this planet. The main reasons behind the problem are industrial revolution and pollution explosion and high demand of luxury items in the life. Presently, lack of proper education, awareness, knowledge and approach of people towards environment degrades the nature and its resources. Thus, sustainable development appears to be a doomsday approach for various countries across the globe. There is a need of hour to develop a strong environmental education system with the responsiveness of human towards the nature for sustainability and environmental security. United Nations and various countries are taking active steps in this aspect to develop collaboration with the society. Various initiatives in the forms of awareness campaigning and community development programs are running across various countries of the globe in this connection. Environmental education has been defined and redefined over the period of last 25 years. Definitional issues are inherent in a field this broad and encompassing. It is generally agreed that environmental education is a process that creates awareness and understanding of the relationship between humans and their many environments, natural, man-made, cultural, and technological. According to the UNESCO's recent documents, sustainable development is the ultimate goal of man-environment relationship. Thus, the whole education process should be reshaped for sustainable development. The education for sustainable development goals of 2030 roadmap sets out the urgent challenges facing by the planet and underlines the implementation of the new education policies for the sustainable development. The ESD for 2030 roadmap outlined actions in 5 priority action areas. These are advancing policy, transforming learning environments, building capacities of educators, empowering and mobilizing youth, accelerating local level actions. India government took this environmental education for sustainable development in a new height. Honorable Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi introduces Mission Life to the world at the 26th UN Climate Change Conference of the Parties in Glasgow as the most innovative and interactive program towards sustainable developmental goals. In his word, Mission Life can become a mass movement of environmental conscious lifestyle. What is needed today is mindful and deliberate utilization of resources rather than mindless and destructive consumption. The 7 mantras of Mission Life are: adopt healthy lifestyle, adopt sustainable food system, say no to single-use plastic, save energy, save water, reduce waste and reduce e-waste. Thus, Mission Life seeks to channel the effort of individuals and communities into a global mass movement in favor of positive behavioral changes in favor of environmental education and sustainable development.
Friends, as I conclude, let me reiterate that we should not forget our duties towards Mother Nature. Mother Nature does not favor a fragmented approach. She prefers Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, one earth, one family, one future.